Russia, a land of breathtaking beauty and vast landscapes. A nation that stretches across 2 continents and 11 time zones. From the icy tundras of Siberia to the grand palaces of St. Petersburg, Russia's history is as expansive as its geography. For centuries, this nation has stood at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, a place where empires have risen and fallen, where revolutions have shaped the world, and where the resilience of its people has been tested time and again. Today, we embark on a journey through the remarkable story of Russia, its origins, triumphs, tragedies, and the forces that have shaped the country we know today. Before we begin, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our next journey into the past. Before Russia was a nation, before its cities and mighty rulers, there was only land, vast, wild, and untamed. Here, in the forests and river valleys of Eastern Europe, small Slavic tribes lived off the land, fishing the rivers, hunting the woods, and farming the fertile soil. They were a people bound by family and tradition, scattered across a land so immense that no single ruler could ever claim it. Not yet. By the 9th century, these isolated Slavic tribes were visited by strangers from the north. The Varangians, fierce Norse warriors and cunning traders. They came not only to raid, but to settle and rule, navigating the rivers like highways, connecting Scandinavia to the wealth of Byzantium. Over time, these interactions sparked something new, a unification of tribes, a vision of governance and trade beyond mere survival. And from this, the first Russian state would be born. From these beginnings rose Kievan Rus, a federation of Slavic tribes united under strong leadership and ambitious vision. Its heart lay in Kiev, a city perfectly positioned along the Dnieper River, serving as a gateway between the north and the Mediterranean world. Kiev grew wealthy through trade. Its markets are filled with goods from across Europe and Asia. Here, the seeds of Russian culture, politics, and identity were sown. In 988, Prince Vladimir the Great made a decision that would define the soul of Russia. He embraced Christianity from the Byzantine Empire and commanded his people to be baptized in the waters of the Dnieper River. This moment transformed Kievan Rus into a spiritual and cultural powerhouse. Magnificent churches rose, art and literature flourished, and a unique form of Russian orthodoxy emerged, binding the people together with faith and shared identity. But unity was fragile. As the generations passed, Kievan Rus splintered into rival states, each ruled by competing princes hungry for power. This internal division weakened the nation, leaving it vulnerable to forces gathering beyond its borders. In the 13th century, a storm unlike any other swept across the Russian lands. The Mongols, led by the mighty Golden Horde, descended with overwhelming speed and power. Cities burned, fields were razed, and countless lives were lost. For more than 200 years, the Russian principalities would live under Mongol domination, paying heavy tribute to distant Khans. This era, remembered as the Mongol yoke, broke the unity of the Rus people, but it also planted the seeds of future resistance. Though the Mongol conquest brought devastation and despair, it also forged a shared sense of endurance and identity. From this crucible of suffering, a new power would one day rise, Moscow, destined to lead Russia's revival and future greatness. Out of centuries of chaos and Mongol domination, one city began to rise above the rest, Moscow. Once a modest trading post among forests and rivers, Moscow's strategic location and shrewd leadership would transform it into the heart of a new Russian state. By the late 15th century, Ivan III, known to history as Ivan the Great, led Moscow to throw off the Mongol yoke. Through diplomacy and defiance, he refused to pay tribute to the Golden Horde, signaling the birth of a free and independent Russian state. Under Ivan's rule, Moscow absorbed neighboring principalities, uniting the fractured Russian lands under one banner for the first time in centuries. This was the moment when Russia began to emerge as a true nation. With the fall of Constantinople in 1453, the Byzantine Empire, the heart of Orthodox Christianity, was no more. Ivan III declared Moscow the Third Rome, the spiritual and political successor to Byzantium. This vision cast Russia as a divinely chosen empire, destined to lead and protect the Orthodox world. This belief in Moscow's sacred mission would echo through Russian history, shaping its politics, its expansion, and its enduring sense of destiny. Ivan the Great centralized government power, built the stone Kremlin that still dominates Moscow's skyline today, and created the administrative systems that would guide Russia for centuries. By the time of his death in 1505, Moscow stood strong, ready to expand beyond survival toward the empire. In 1547, Ivan III's grandson, Ivan IV, was crowned as the first Tsar of all Russia. This title signified not just kingship, but supreme, absolute authority, a leader chosen by God to rule over a vast and growing realm. Under Ivan's rule, Russia expanded dramatically, reaching deep into the forests of Siberia, and establishing itself as a formidable power on the world stage. But Ivan's reign was marked by paranoia and violence. Haunted by betrayal and obsessed with control, he created the Oprichniki, a secret police force that carried out his will through terror and bloodshed. Even Ivan's own family was not safe from his wrath. His paranoia consumed him, and the final years of his rule were defined by suffering, fear, and chaos. Ivan IV's policies and conquests laid the foundations for a future empire. By the end of his life, Russia was larger, more centralized, and more powerful than ever before. But it bore deep scars that would take centuries to heal. Ivan's death in 1584 left a fragile kingdom without clear succession. The empire he built would soon descend into chaos, plunging Russia into one of its darkest periods, the time of troubles. In 1613, after years of chaos and foreign invasion known as the Time of Troubles, a young noble named Mikhail Romanov was chosen to lead Russia. His coronation marked the dawn of a new dynasty, the Romanovs. For the next 3 centuries, they would guide Russia through war and peace, transforming a fragmented land into one of the most powerful empires on earth. Among the Romanovs, one leader stood above the rest in vision and ambition: Peter I, known to history as Peter the Great. When Peter ascended the throne in the late 1600s, Russia was vast but isolated, its traditions deeply rooted in medieval customs. Determined to modernize his nation, Peter looked to the great powers of Europe for inspiration. He reformed the military, creating a professional standing army and a powerful navy. He encouraged science, technology, and education, inviting foreign experts and sending Russian students abroad to learn new skills. Peter's boldest move was the construction of a new capital, St. Petersburg, built on the marshy banks of the Neva River. This city became his window to the West, a symbol of Russia's emergence as a modern European power. A century later, another towering figure ascended the throne, Catherine II, known as Catherine the Great. Her reign marked a golden age for Russia. A skilled diplomat and visionary ruler, Catherine expanded the empire's borders, extending its reach into Crimea, Poland, and the Black Sea. But Catherine's influence wasn't limited to military and territorial conquests. She brought art, philosophy, and Enlightenment ideals to her court, transforming Russia into a vibrant center of culture and intellectual life. Yet beneath the grandeur of palaces and the triumph of territorial expansion, millions of ordinary Russians lived in misery and poverty, bound to the land under serfdom. They were treated as property, bought and sold alongside the estates they worked. This system created a deep divide between the aristocracy and the common people, a divide that simmered for centuries, growing ever more volatile as new ideas of freedom and equality spread across Europe. While Russia's rulers celebrated their imperial achievements, the world outside was changing rapidly. Across Europe, revolutions challenged monarchies and sparked demands for reform. In Russia, these ideas took root in secret societies and intellectual circles, planting seeds of rebellion that would one day ignite into full-scale revolution. The empire appeared strong on the surface, but beneath it, a storm was brewing, one that would sweep away centuries of Romanov rule and change Russia forever. By the early 20th century, Russia stood as one of the largest empires in the world. Its reach spans from Europe to Asia. But beneath its vast size lay deep divisions and suffering. While the elite thrived in luxury, millions of peasants and workers lived in desperate poverty. The strain of World War I pushed this fragile empire to the edge. Famine, staggering casualties, and economic collapse created a powder keg ready to explode. In 1917, anger boiled over into revolution. First came the February Revolution, when strikes and mass protests forced Tsar Nicholas II to abdicate, ending more than 300 years of Romanov rule. For the first time in centuries, Russia was without a Tsar. But the struggle for Russia's future was far from over. Later that same year, a radical faction known as the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, launched the October Revolution. The Bolsheviks seized power, promising peace, land, and bread to a war-weary nation. In 1922, they established the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the USSR, the world's first communist state. It was a bold, radical experiment, a society built on the ideals of equality and collective prosperity. To many, it seemed a new dawn had arrived, but the path forward would be paved with unimaginable sacrifice. After Lenin's death in 1924, a fierce struggle for power ensued. Emerging from the chaos was Joseph Stalin, a man whose iron grip would transform the Soviet Union and terrify its people. Under Stalin, the USSR underwent rapid industrialization, turning from a rural backwater into a global superpower in just a few decades. But this progress came at a staggering human cost. Purges, famines, and forced labor camps claimed the lives of millions. The same system that built a mighty state also unleashed unprecedented suffering. In 1941, Nazi Germany launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest military invasion in history. The Soviet Union faced annihilation as German forces advanced deep into its territory. In a war of unimaginable brutality, Soviet soldiers and civilians fought with unmatched determination. The conflict, known to Russians as the Great Patriotic War, claimed over 20 million Soviet lives. Against overwhelming odds, the Soviet Union emerged victorious, playing a decisive role in defeating Nazi Germany and reshaping the future of Europe. Victory in World War II elevated the Soviet Union to superpower status, rivaling the United States in a new kind of conflict, a battle fought through ideology, technology, and influence, known as the Cold War. From the brink of nuclear annihilation during the Cuban Missile Crisis, to the glory of sending the first man into space, the Cold War shaped global politics for nearly half a century. By the 1980s, cracks began to show in the Soviet system. Economic stagnation, political unrest, and costly wars weakened the once mighty state. Reforms under Mikhail Gorbachev, such as Glasnost and Perestroika, brought hope for change, but also accelerated the unraveling of Soviet power. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed, ending one of the most ambitious and turbulent experiments in human history. 15 new nations emerged from its ashes, and Russia began a new chapter as the Russian Federation. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, it was more than the fall of a superpower. It was the end of a world order that had shaped global politics for nearly a century. For Russia, it marked the start of a new and uncertain journey, a journey filled with promise and peril. In the decades following the USSR's fall, Russia faced a period of profound upheaval. The transition to a market economy brought inflation, unemployment, and hardship for millions. As state-owned industries were sold off, a small group of powerful businessmen, known as oligarchs, amassed vast fortunes, while many ordinary citizens struggled to survive. Politically, the young Russian Federation wavered between democracy and instability. Corruption ran rampant, and power struggles threatened to tear the nation apart. It was a time of uncertainty, a time when the future itself seemed to hang in the balance. In 1999, Boris Yeltsin resigned, handing power to Vladimir Putin, a former KGB officer with a vision of restoring Russia's strength. Putin promised stability, security, and a return to national pride after a decade of chaos. Under his leadership, Russia experienced economic recovery, fueled by rising oil and gas revenues. For many, the 2000s felt like a time of renewal, a period when Russia seemed ready to reclaim its place as a global power. Today, Russia remains a nation of deep contrasts. It is a land where ancient traditions coexist with modern ambitions, where glittering skyscrapers rise beside centuries-old churches, and where vast wealth and harsh poverty are separated by only a few streets. Russia's present is marked by moments of progress and pride, but also by echoes of its turbulent past. The challenges of reform, democracy, and global influence remain ever present, woven into the very fabric of the nation. Every decision made today carries the weight of history. From the legacies of the Tsars to the rise and fall of the Soviet Union, the past continues to shape the choices of the present. And just as Russia has reinvented itself countless times before, it will continue to evolve, endure, and redefine its identity in the years to come. From humble beginnings in ancient forests to the rise of a global superpower, Russia's history is a tale of resilience, ambition, and transformation. It is a reminder that the past lives on in the present, and that the story of a nation is never truly finished. As Russia continues to evolve, its legacy remains a profound influence on the world we live in today.